Okay, I'm here right now with Caitlin, and I met up with Caitlin, and we were talking as so many people are here engaging in conversation. And Caitlin, you've come here because you're searching for some kind of meaning. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So I came from I guess more western Maryland, kind of like an hour outside of town. And I'd heard about the riots that had happened back in Ferguson, that sort of thing, and but I didn't really feel connected to it. It's like you see this terrible thing on the news, and it could be anywhere. And so I, this time it was closer to home, so I figured I'm gonna come down and just see it.
Because you're here from Maryland, of course.
Yeah, I'm here from Maryland. I only live about an hour away.
And what was your reaction when you first heard about the Freddie Gray issue? What did you think about that?
When I first heard about it, it kind of started to come up on the news. I honestly hadn't really responded to it too much until the real kind of violence the riots sparked. I came down on last Saturday when they had their first march the rally with Black Lawyers for Justice and a couple of groups that came up and talked, and just the rioting and the violence that happened later, it got me it made me realize just how serious things were getting. Right.
Now, are you aware that African Americans, blacks, have been getting killed here for the longest time by the police? Or was it just this incident here of the riots starting that you mentioned that finally attracted your attention to it?
To be honest, I'm embarrassed to say that I did not know. I did not know. I knew. You hear oh, don't go outside of the inner harbor, it's a bad part of town.
Oh, wow.
Look out for the blue lights. These are things that I've had friends say to me. I have friends saying to me still now, like when you go down there, look out for those lights, don't go too far away.
Do you think they're being kind of racial when they say that?
I think so, and if I was going to say one way or the other, I would say that it's not, I don't think it's born of a particular, anger or something like that. It's just, that's what you hear. It's almost like my friends just parrot, oh, it's bad down there, oh, it's bad down there.
Do you think that's white America's way or viewpoint of looking at things, maybe?
Oh, yeah, I think so. And I think it's easy if it's far away to, kind of sweep it under the rug.
Wow. But you're being very honest here, and you're not skirting that yourself, but I mean, that's odd that a white chick, a wet eye, as they say in Spanish, would take an interest in what's going on here.
Well, I think it's in the interest of all people. One, I completely agree with what they're saying with Black Lives Matter and with the focus being on Black Lives Matter.
Why is that? Why do you agree with that?
Well, because I feel like the focus right now is that these people, are not getting I'll give you an example because I have trouble articulating sometimes. I was driving around going to, on this past Wednesday, there was a town hall, kind of the northwest part of Baltimore, and the roads there, you could barely drive. There was trash everywhere, and you drive about 3 more minutes, and the city looks nice. And looking at the difference...
I saw that too, by the way.
Looking at the difference even in just skin color between one and the other, it's like, what is the difference between these two parts of town? Why is one really well funded, the roads look great, and one looks terrible? I mean, what possible reason could there be when they're so close?
So there's a disparity there, quite obviously.
Right.
And a lot of people don't want to deal with that issue.
Right. And I think that part of it is, I think, not wanting to get involved with something that's difficult like that. I think it's easier to be separated and just, stay home and watch Netflix. It's much easier than coming out here and, trying to actually get something done. And I think the other part of it is that people don't know what to do. They get on Facebook and they talk about, this and that and this, and I'm angry about this. But when it comes to actually kind of the unsexy nuts and bolts of legislative action and, how do you get your point across, I think a lot of people don't want to deal with that.
Wow. And so now you want to help out people? Is that kind of your thing? You're kind of searching for something out there? You got turned down by the NAACP?
Right.
And who else turned you down?
I've been driving all around. Well, the NAACP I would love to get involved with because I want to get the residents of Baltimore in on real legislative action. I want to have a lobbying training.
Do you have experience in that?
Well, I've been trained before, but I don't have a certification, unfortunately, and I'm looking for a group, hopefully, that can help put on, a larger scale production like this, because I think that's really what's going to get things to change, and that needs that careful cultivation to see through all the way to actual legislation. But I have been talking around, and maybe I aimed a little bit too high. Like you said, I tried to call the NAACP. I can't get past the secretary.
Right. Well, at least you're here, and you see that in order to get in with these people, you have to first understand
Yes.
and be able to empathize with their way of life that has been like this for many years. I mean, this is a very historical city. I was looking at this building over there. How old is that building? It looks pretty ancient, right? And then this Capitol up here is pretty old too, right? I mean, what's here in Maryland from? I mean, you should know a little bit of history.
Oh,
You seem
gosh,
like you're. Where does this go back to? All this white supremacy. I heard that one of the police officers.
That's pretty old.
You think it's pretty old?
If I'm being honest.
Okay, because I'd seen a video on Facebook of all places, social media, and there was this black guy who was talking about how he was friends with the KKK, and one of the KKK's guys had given him his robe, and it turns out he was also a police officer.
Oh.
And so again, this stuff has been ingrained for a really long time. You're talking about white privilege. You know what white privilege is?
Oh, yes.
What does that mean to you, white privilege?
I think white privilege is not knowing what white privilege is, partially. But just that I don't want to make it sound like life is easy for anyone, because we all have our own background that we come from, and I don't want to minimize that from anybody. But in terms of, I'll give you another example. My mother works with some people who are kind of more, a little more, I don't want to say conservative, a little more outdated in their views. And they said, well, why don't they just go to college? Why don't they just get a job? Why are they out here, living on welfare and that sort of thing? And my mother had to tell them, okay, so what if you never had, a structure where you were expected to go to school, or you didn't graduate school, or what if you have other, hardships where you weren't able to go? What if you,
So your mom understands what's going on?
Yeah, actually her and my father both used to work in an emergency room in Baltimore. So they dealt with a lot of people coming in
doctors?
at night. Well, they were like emergency nurses.
Okay.
So, and they said that they actually had personal experience with the Baltimore police too, and they said the same thing. They were like, this has been something that's been happening a long time.
Wow.
And yeah, they're like, we saw them being overly rough with people at the time, and they really went back and forth. They're like, it's terrible what's happening. They feel like, it'd be terrible to be a cop right now too. It's such a tragedy across the board, I feel like.
Do you think if they could have now, do you think they would say something? Because obviously this is what they call the institutional racism, and part of the code of silence. People stay quiet because they're afraid to talk about it, to get in trouble, and then they get fired.
Right.
I mean, really, that's what it boils down to. It's the whole economic situation. Well, we don't need you because you're a liability. You're a troublemaker. You're supposed to help out the police. The police are the good guys.
Right.
These are thugs, scum of the earth, dirty Negroes, whatever they want to use to describe them.
Right.
And so, okay, well, thank you very much. And it was a pleasure talking to you here. And hopefully more white people will get it, right?
Here's hoping. It's gotta change. It's not
gotta
sustainable.
change.
Yep.
All right. Thank you so much, Caitlin.
Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.